We got to talk about your Bears here because it's a weird season. We talked about it with Eric Kramer in the last segment, and he was a little bit critical of Caleb Williams at the beginning of the season. Obviously, not so much now. He praised his development and everything, but it's funny to me the juxtaposition of this because you were not excited at the beginning of the season when that was going on, and then you got excited, and then they lost both times, but the result still is the same, that they're ending up in the playoffs. And this is what I wondered, because obviously for the Lions side of things, I think that's kind of best case scenario in a lot of ways. You had a 9-8 season, so you ended up with a winning season, even though it wasn't what you wanted. You got some momentum. You got to beat Ben Johnson twice, which I think is important for those guys internally. And then you still got a decent pick. You still got the fourth rated schedule in the division, which I think will factor in because the Bears, not to undercut what they did this season, but I think that helped them this season versus having the top schedule that the Lions had. So now that'll basically be inverted for next season. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But it actually occurred to me that this might not be that bad a thing for the Bears either, because does this kind of give them a little bit of an edge, a renewed edge heading into the playoffs, saying, hey, we got to rework some things so that we're not coming down to the final play like against San Francisco, and we're not getting outworked. I don't want to say outworked, but outclassed by a Lions team that really didn't have a lot to play for.
I think if the Bears had wanted to rest on their laurels, Ben Johnson would have lost his mind, but it's not even a consideration anymore. So I will answer your question with a solid yes, Ryan. I think it was unfortunate watching that game last week and thinking, boy, I thought the Lions were the better team coming in, and they are undoubtedly the better team coming out. And the Bears had their fourth quarter magic, just like they've had all year. It didn't quite deliver, even though that pick was pretty wild play. Looked a lot like pass interference on Jaquan Brisker, but I'll take it. But after that game, my goodness, Ben Johnson looked like he was ready to call all the guys out and have them run sprints until they puked in the middle of the night, like remember the Titans. I mean, that guy is, I have to imagine it's a very, very intense week at Hallis Hall. And that's perfect, because that's what it should be. It should feel like there is a fire under everyone's backside, and they are locked in because you have to be locked in, because there's two totally disparate things happening right now in the NFC playoffs, and they are combining to present a wonderful opportunity for the Bears. Thing number one that's happening is that there are a handful of teams like the Bears that are basically league average teams that are in the playoffs. And that is, there's some luck, certainly, from the Bears' perspective, but there's incredible opportunity, because outside of the teams on the West, who the Bears don't have to play to start the playoffs and might not even have to play in round two if they get there, there's no dominant team. The window's open. Like the door is wide open to continue advancing here. And so the team that is able to lock in and focus up and take advantage of tiny opportunities has a chance to have a really special season without being an elite roster. There's no 2023 Lions roster, maybe outside of Seattle, and even in Seattle, Sam Darnold looks a lot like a pumpkin in the last 6 weeks. And maybe Los Angeles, but boy, they absolutely collapsed against Seattle the last time they were there. That's got to weigh on them. This is not a year where you look at the standings and you look up and down, you look at the playoff bracket and you say, yeah, I mean, everybody in the world knows the 15-1 Patriots are going to go to the Super Bowl. No, the NFC doesn't have that. So if you're hungry, you've got a chance.
I think that's a great point. That's actually what I was going to say next. It's kind of a wide open field right now. The Seahawks are the favorites, quote unquote, right now. But like you said, we saw this last season with Darnold down the stretch. It's kind of happening again. It's with a different team. This team has surged. The coaching has been good. The defense has been great, but they're a little bit unproven in a playoff scenario. Then you've got Stafford late in the season with his age and injury history. Does he hold? There are question marks up and down where I don't think you really go, okay, no, the Bears can't jump over some of these teams. I think it's plausible. They're lower rated as far as the odds go for a reason, but getting in this year I think is especially key because, like you said, it's not kind of a penciled in elimination for the most part here. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch them. We'll do a little bit of a playoff and maybe even off season preview. You had some interesting stuff about the off season, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So we got to do a playoff preview. But we'll take a quick break and come back here with Rob Huff of Huff on Sports. Stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. I'm back here with Rob Huff talking some Bears and talking kind of a wide open playoff field here in our collective opinion, it seems, because it's interesting matchups here, I think, in the first round in general, the way they worked out, and you end up with a divisional matchup, which means you've got to play a team for the third time. But I always think it's tough, and the statistics bear this out, that when you've beaten a team twice, it's then tough to do it the third time, but they've split in the regular season. So I'm curious how you see this game going for your Bears.
So I'm gonna take a slightly circuitous route to get there.
Go ahead.
And just tell you were mentioning before the break that when I wrote, I finally put something up on the blog, and what is it? It's a preview of the off season. And that's really for two reasons, right? The first one is it's January. Every January for the last 15 years now has been preparing for the next year. Even when they made the playoffs in 2018 with that dominant defense and second-year Mitchell Trubisky, we all remember Cody Parkey banging balls off the uprights and finally hit one off the upright and then the crossbar to miss with the double doink. And that's it. That's the playoff resume for the last 15 years. And so in my brain, I'm conditioned to think it's time for the offseason now. But the other thing that was happening was, as I kept thinking about this game, and kept thinking about Bears-Packers Part 3 and looked back at Parts 1 and 2 and looked at the rest of the Bears season and especially the last probably 2 months of the season as they've really rounded into form, I keep coming back to, I have no idea. I know what the preview says on paper. The preview on paper says the Bears should be running the ball nonstop. DeAndre Swift has had a spectacular season. Kyle Monungai has been a nice player as a seventh-round pick, but it's the offensive line. The interior offensive linemen, Drew Dahlman, Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson combined to miss 25 snaps on the season. Not games, not quarters, but snaps. Those guys have been together all year. They've been road grading on the inside. They've gotten great production from Darnell Wright, former number 10 overall pick at right tackle. Ozzie Trapillo at left tackle is coming back from a kind of gnarly hamstring quad injury, but he looks like he was probably 50-50 last week. He should be good to go this week. Just let your offensive line open holes, run the ball at Green Bay, control the game on the ground, and you're in good shape. And all I come back to is there's no way. Ben Johnson's not going to do that. He's going to run the ball plenty, but he's not going to say it's 65-35 run to pass. He just won't. He's hardwired to say, I want to be creative. I want to take my shots. And by the way, when I look at my passing offense and I see Caleb Williams throwing the ball to Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden III, Colson Loveland, and Cole Kmet, I have advantages. I will have advantages on every play. Every single snap where I have Luther Burden matched up against the slot defender, I have an advantage. I'm not going to just give that away and only run the ball. So what's he going to do? I don't know exactly. What's the game flow going to dictate? I don't know. How snowy is it going to get? I don't know. This is the beauty of playoff football. When it's not obvious coming in what the outcome is going to be, I don't know anything other than sit back and watch and enjoy. Playoff football is going to be chaotic. Nobody really knows where this one's going, and these teams are, on the whole, too evenly matched to have a really good feel for it. That's where I keep landing.
It's a great place to land because you hit on something that we talk about on the show some, but I don't think it's talked about enough, which is a lot of this stuff, when you try to analyze it, comes down to game script. But thankfully for the Bears contingent, they're a little bit game script impervious because they're not necessarily going to be in the hole if they have to throw. They're they're okay with taking control and running the ball and using that offensive line. So that's a good thing given, weather elements and what you can see in the playoffs. You want to be able to do things different ways, to win different ways. They've done it with the defense too. That's obviously been very turnover heavy. That's kind of how the defense is played, but I think they can probably be stout come the playoffs as well. So I think that's one of the big advantages of Ben Johnson, and there's a lot of things that people missed, I think, about Ben Johnson this year. But one of the things that wasn't highlighted enough was he just kept everything off kilter. He kept the defense off kilter. He ran plays in odd times, and that was by design because he said, okay, this is a 3rd and 6. They're expecting a pass, so we're going to run. That became a little bit more predictable after he left. And for the Bears, with the variety that they have, especially when you add in Caleb Williams' legs and the strong offensive line, they've got a lot of options, and he used them well.
I think Ben has definitely been enjoying the depth of this roster and the fact that there are a lot of different playmakers in different spots, and you can give them the ball in different ways. It can be a quick screen to Burden. It can be a screen pass to Swift. It can be Monangai running behind a light front. It can be Swift running behind a 9-man front. There's no thing that you can't do when you have that group. That you have every option available to you. And certainly this is not the norm for the Bears. It's no big surprise to everybody that the offense is not exactly known for being explosive. But that's what it is right now. It's a young, explosive group of guys, of playmakers all over the place with an offensive line in front of them that can make just about anything happen. And so I think the one thing that's not going to happen is Johnson won't get pigeonholed into one spot. He's not going to get stuck saying, all I'm doing is running or all I'm doing is throwing, unless the game gets way out of hand through 20 minutes. If it's 21-3 Green Bay in the middle of the second quarter, all right, I don't think he's going to run the ball a lot. But that's not a Ben Johnson choice. That's a football game flow dictation. You can't run the ball a lot if you're down by a ton and you need to be scoring a ton.
Exactly. That goes back to the game script conversation. So it'll be an interesting matchup. I do like that matchup as a whole, Green Bay versus Chicago. And yeah, I can't see them falling down like that early, but you never know what's gonna happen. But there will be a lot of fans in this area watching that. It's the divisional matchup. I know that Lions fans want to get in there, but hopefully next year. We were talking with Eric about the pending rivalry here, but we'll have to wait till next year for that. But hopefully we'll be able to check in with you throughout the playoffs, especially if the Bears go on a run here. Then we'll definitely want some Bears coverage. Otherwise, we'll be checking in with you for the off season, because I did like I was talking with Big G in the first segment about the PFF mock draft simulator, and we have a lot of overlap in some of the players that we were going after. I noticed when I do the Lions draft and you did the Bears. So we'll have to talk about that as we approach the draft. But be sure to tell people where they can follow you, especially as you do hopefully cover the playoffs, maybe some, but at least the off season where your bread and butter is.
Certainly, yeah. So it's huffonsports.blogspot.com. Mostly Bears coverage. There's always a little bit of Penn State stuff right now, but in this exact moment, my head is swirling. I think they hit 75 players between folks going into and then coming back out of the portal. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what college football is right now. So probably going to be a little more Bears focused for a little bit here. And that's a very, very exciting thing for me, to be able to do that in January and talk about actual football games that are happening. It's wild. It's foreign territory, but it's the most exciting foreign territory there is.
If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that obviously we knew we were going to have you on around this time because the Bears-Lions matchup had been determined. If you would have told me that we would have been talking about a Bears playoff run that was fairly wide open, the Lions being out of the playoffs, Penn State having all of this turmoil, and Indiana being the top team in the country, I don't think I would have believed you, no matter how convincing you were.
Yeah, sorry, I've got to get one thing from you, Ryan, before you let me go. How are you feeling about that Peach Bowl?
We were talking a little bit about, we actually focused more on the matchup tonight here, since that's first. And I would say I have a tendency to talk about Indiana a lot, but really not until recently. We really didn't include it in the coverage much because we were such a Michigan-based show, and then highlight the teams that Detroit plays against in the pros. But I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I think if you kind of look at the other hottest team right now, clearly Indiana's hot. They should be on top. That's weird to say, but they have earned it. But Oregon is not going to be easy to beat again. They didn't really handle them. I mean, they did well against them, especially considering the circumstances. That was the game that put them on the map this season. That was the game that basically announced that they were for real, quote unquote, to a lot of the pundits, because even last year they didn't really beat anybody that the pundits considered put them on the map. So then they lost to Notre Dame and Ohio State, who matched up in the championship, but that wasn't good enough. They needed to prove it this year. That Oregon game was the proving ground. But those two quarterbacks are going to be paired together, similar in probably draft evaluation, and those teams have a lot of talent. And so I'm never feeling good because it's Indiana and I don't know how to feel. So that's part of it, but Oregon is going to be a tough matchup here, because to play them again, no, they didn't have to beat them twice over the regular season, but to beat them twice, I think, is going to be difficult. So I like both of these matchups. I like the matchup on the other side that's going on right now too.
I feel really confident that Indiana is going to just completely handle Oregon and win by a couple of scores. And I also felt most confident last week that Georgia would have no problem with Mississippi, and that Ohio State was going to clobber Miami. So take it for what it's worth, Ryan. I don't know what's going on in college football, clearly.
Well, and our roles are kind of reversed here, because usually we're talking to you about Penn State and and obviously the Bears, and you try to be very objective about them. You don't lean into the fact that you're a fan. You basically try to be objective, and that's what I'm trying to do with Indiana. So now we're reversed. Now I'm not sure about the game, and you're thinking they're going to win. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I like the matchups overall. I like that it's a little bit of a fresh take on the college football playoff, because although Miami's kind of a historical power, we haven't seen much from them lately. We talked about the Trinidad Chambliss story with Mississippi. That one's great. And then you got a Big Ten matchup on the other side. So either way, you got a Big Ten team in the final again. So it's exciting stuff. We'll have to check in with you probably on that and the Bears here, and we'll see how they do. Hopefully for the Bears contingent, they can make a run here in the playoffs.